So you've been thinking about doing an AR-15 build. Well, today's your day. We have Caleb Savant from Brownells. We're going to talk all about doing your own gun builds. Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Remington Ammunition, Hodgdon, the Gunpowder People, Springfield Armory, and Safariland. We save lives. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, you guys have been very interested in the gun build thing lately. The whole gun world is all about building guns. So we thought we'd bring in an expert. We have Caleb Savant, or Savant, if you're down South Louisiana, from Brownells. Welcome in, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what's fun is, guys, there's so many places to go with this. So gun builds. What I love about gun builds is, one, anything that pokes the bear on people who don't like guns, I'm all about. I love it. It's fun because they freak out and they go, "You can't manufacture your own guns." Well, people have been doing it since before the country was founded. So yeah, you can actually, and it is legal. So kind of want to just talk about gun builds, and it seems like there are a lot of different ways to do it, but the place to start would probably be talking about AR-15s, because that's what people think of when we think of gun builds. Then they start quickly venturing out into 1911s, 1022s, Glock builds or Glock clones or whatever. I guess to start, why would someone do a gun build, or what are the reasons you hear about people doing it?
The biggest reason is just to make it your own, or just to say you can do it. The same reason, all the hot rod guys build their cars, just to make it their own, make it yours. It's custom. It's putting you into it. It's the thing, for me as a gunsmith, when I'm building a gun, when I'm gunsmithing, it's, and I use this term so much whenever I'm describing to people, it's functional art in the form of a firearm. And, that's kind of where I approach it from. And it's also just the hobby aspect of it, and I say this, kind of loosely because it's just the manly thing to do, but there's plenty of women out there building guns as well. So it's just that aspect and that approach to it.
And it's funny because, yes, there's art to it of, I want to make this look really cool.
Right.
There is also the making this shoot even better. Maybe it performs better than my stock gun I would buy off the rack, because I'm adding either things that fit me as a shooter, or just you are actually improving the trigger. I mean, I kind of like to joke, and I'm sorry if any mil-spec trigger makers out there, but mil-spec means just good enough. Like, it'll make the gun go bang. To me, it's like a lot of times mil-spec on an AR is like, it was safe enough for an 18-year-old Marine to use, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's awesome. And I mean, you think about, like, all cars come with stereos already. But if you take it to the stereo shop, your car is going to sound better. I mean, what do you think, Caleb?
So I kind of approach it like this. So whenever especially when you're getting into the AR-15 parts, there's your low grade stuff, there's your mid to high grade stuff, and then there's your premium stuff. I put mil-spec in the mid to high grade stuff because the mil-spec stuff, look, if you look at it this way, it's built by the lowest bidder, but it's the lowest bidder that was good enough to meet mil-spec, because all your lowest bidder stuff, like that stuff had to even make the bid. It had to make the mil-spec trials. So your low tier stuff didn't even get there.
That's
so
a good point. Okay.
That's not even good enough to be mil-spec. So
yeah,
that's not even in the race. So your mil-spec stuff is still your mid to high tier stuff.
That's fair enough, because we know that anything that actually is mil-spec and gets approved for a military contract specifically, the qualification and the testing is rigorous for these guys. I mean, you guys have experienced that. Remember when Brownells was doing AR mags. I mean, It was nuts. I remember hearing about the testing you guys had to go through there.
It was insane.
Millions of rounds.
Millions of rounds at the range, just all day long shooting, just dumping rounds. It was it was insane. It was just insane testing that we put those magazines through.
Well, so that's fair enough. So mil spec is proven. It's,
Yes.
I guess you could say it's vetted, it's proven. And on the other hand, I'm going to contradict myself. It's just good enough for an 18-year-old Marine to use, but it's also can perhaps withstand a bunch of 18-year-old Marines, which is saying something.
It is, yeah. So I remember my time in the Army. I was a combat engineer, and we were doing some pretty dumb stuff to our equipment. So it had to withstand us. So
right. It's a great testing ground.
Yeah, it's a good testing ground. So yeah, it had to be that good at least.
Okay, so if someone has never done an AR build, I guess you probably get this question all the time. Where do they start, and what are they going to need? So
that's a very interesting question. So the first thing you need to do, so it's like, okay, I want to build an AR-15. Great. That's you've taken the first step. You've determined that you want to do that. The first thing you need to do is define a purpose for your build. What do you want to use it for? Are you just going to be plinking at the range? Are you going to be, shooting long distance from a bench? Are you going to be using it for hunting? What type of hunting? Once you determine a purpose for your build, that's when you can kind of start collecting your parts and doing a little bit more research, because that purpose is going to determine what parts you select, how much weight you're going to be putting into those components, your price range, everything else. So that's the first thing you really need to do. And once you determine that purpose for your build, then everything else is just going to start coming together from there. Because if you don't do that and you just kind of jump in and kind of start shopping around, or you jump onto the interwebs and start reading the forums, you're going to be really overwhelmed with all the information and all the opinions out there. And that's whenever things can kind of get a little tricky and really overwhelming.
That's a good point, because it's immense of the options and what you can do. And this reason why it's so popular is because it's not a matter of there's one AR that you build. I mean, there's a massive, massive difference between I want to do long range shooting or like predator hunting with a 24-inch bull barrel versus I want this to be a backpack gun or a pistol caliber carbine.
Right. Yeah. The difference between a backpack gun and a gun that I'm going to be shooting predators with at, long distance, those are two very different setups, and all the parts in those two guns are completely different.
It's like they're both ARs, but they're totally different guns.
Yeah. They're both ARs by definition, but they're both completely different guns.
Yeah. So what would they need as far as a starting point to get started beyond the parts of the gun? What kind of tools and gear would they need?
So, minimum as far as tools go, you're going to need a vise to mount to your workbench. You're going to need an upper receiver vise block, a lower receiver vise block, an AR wrench, a multi-wrench, and that wrench will pretty much do everything as far as, your barrel nut, your castle nut, all the major components that are proprietary. So when I say proprietary, I mean the nuts that only an AR wrench are going to be able to fasten, if I'm making sense there.
So specific to that platform.
Specific to that platform, yeah. And then you're going to need a set of punches, like your roll pin punches and things like that. And then really that's going to be it. That's going to be the bulk of your price of tools. And then of course you're going to need like hammers and things like that. But really that's it. And we've launched a new AR build series that goes through all of that. And just in the introduction to that series, I say define a purpose for your build. And then it jumps into the lower receiver. And in that, it goes through all the tools you need, and it goes through everything piece by piece. So it's really in depth. It tells you exactly what you need, how to do it, all the tools. And so basically, as far as tools go, there's a lot less than a lot of people think, but there's a lot of misinformation out there as far as what you can get away with. So I recommend buying the correct tools the first time, and that's going to make the build process a lot easier, because those mistakes are going to definitely ruin the build. So do it right the first time, get the right tools. It's going to make everything go a lot smoother.
Definitely some ones that are specific to doing an AR build. Hey,
Yes.
We'll be right back. Are you ready to hit the range, but you don't have ammunition? You've looked everywhere around town and you go, they don't have what I need. Well, it's time to look online, and it's time to look at Brownells. Brownells.com/ammunition. Brownells has a wide variety of ammo, all the different calibers, all the different bullet weights, whatever you're looking for, they probably have it. And honestly, a lot of times they get stuff in stock faster than your local store. So check out brownells.com. Smith & Wesson, their newest one is the M&P 12. This is a bullpup shotgun, 2 mag tubes, ambi safety selector, removable Picatinny rail, interchangeable M&P palm swell grips. Those are really cool. You can customize it to fit your hand just like an M&P pistol. It can hold 20 mini shells or a combination of 2 3/4 inch, 3-inch magnums, whatever you want to do there. Smith-Wesson.com/MP12 is where you go to find out more information. Safariland. Safariland is known for a lot of different things in the law enforcement and military community. But what's cool is a company like that making those really robust products and then offering it to civilians, the regular guys like me and you. So whether that is Ear Pro, they have really nice earmuffs and different types of hearing protection stuff, or holsters, or some other stuff that you might find on there. They do have a deal going on. It's code GunTalk20Q4 for 20% off. That's GunTalk20Q4 altogether. You'll get 20% off when you go to safariland.com to purchase. All right, so we've talked about AR-15s. Now there are other builds out there that people can do. I mean, they have when I say builds, this is another topic we ought to cover here. Is you're an actual gunsmith, but then there's what I call doing builds is not gunsmithing to me. I mean, perhaps you could argue that, but build is like stuff that can be done almost at a kitchen table. Yeah, a vise is really helpful. But then you're starting to talk about customizing kind of any gun as doing a build, whether that's a 1911 or a Glock clone. I mean, what are the other ones that you're seeing a lot that are popular out there these days?
So the Polymer 80 Glocks, those have taken off a lot in popularity. So I would say, second to the AR-15, the Glocks are going to be the most popular. A lot of the bolt guns, like the Remington 700s, the Howas, those type of clones, those are taking off a lot in popularity. And that's because a lot of the barrel manufacturers are starting to make a system that makes installing those barrels a lot easier, because you don't need the big barrel vices, and you don't need the lathes to headspace them like you used to anymore, because they use a what I would describe as like a Savage style barrel nut system, because you can screw in the barrel and you can tighten down the barrel nut without having to use a lathe to basically cut the shoulder off and headspace it like gunsmiths like me would have to do in the past. Right. So they're a lot more home builder friendly, I would say.
A little bit more foolproof, idiot proof.
A little bit, not completely, but a little bit more.
Okay. Well, this is the fun part, because you guys hear from, Brownells has all these techs, and that's one of the cool things that we've touted this for years on Gun Talk Radio is if you're doing a project, you have a question, call Brownells techs. They're happy to help you, and they have a world of knowledge. I bet you guys hear some interesting stories from people calling in with questions on doing their builds, right?
All the time.
Are there some common areas where people run into trouble in doing like an AR build?
There are, and that's actually, so on our YouTube channel, we post quick tips and different things like that, and like our Smithbuster series and stuff like that we have on YouTube. All of those videos come from common questions. So we take those questions, sort them into quick tips and videos. So pretty much all of those are questions that we get on the tech line.
All right. So give me one. What's a one that you get all the time?
So one of my favorites is probably going to be in relation to Loctites, where and where not to use Loctites. So For example, like your castle nut on your AR-15. For those of you who aren't familiar, or better yet, I'll say castle nut on the gas block on an AR-15. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the gas block is what mounts on the AR-15 barrel.
Mhm.
So the gas block mounts on the barrel, and that's a high heat area. So the bullet passes through the barrel and the gas block's around that. So the gas behind the bullet's going to come up through the gas block, through the gas tube, and into the action.
Goes back into the action of the gun and runs the bolt.
Goes back into the action, runs the bolt. That's what cycles the action. So there's a tremendous amount of heat because the barrel's getting really, really hot. So the gas block's wrapped around the barrel. So as you can imagine, that's getting really, really hot as well. So there's an argument, should I use red Loctite? Should I use blue Loctite there? What should I be using? Or should I use Rockset? It's like, okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar, Rockset is extremely hard to get off. I'll say that. So if you put Rockset on there, you're probably going to have to cut your gas block off if you ever want to remove it. So I recommend never using that because if you have any issues down the road, you're not going to be able to remove that. If you use blue Loctite, the first 5 bullets that go down there is going to burn it off, turn it into powder. If you use red Loctite, maybe first 15, 20 bullets that go through there is going to burn it and turn it into powder. It's still going
to burn it off.
So the answer to that is don't use any Loctite because it doesnn't matter. So the argument
doesn't that heat.
Yeah, the argument doesn't matter at all. So for everyone who asks what Loctite do I use, and for those of you out there who are arguing what color Loctite, it doesn't matter. Use whatever Loctite you want if you're gonna be crazy about it, but it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, you guys all go fight about it, but it actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're wasting Loctite.
I gotta admit, red Loctite, I'm a little nervous about that because are there very many things, especially if you're thinking about an AR-15 where you're doing builds and now you start liking customizing the gun? Are there many things that you don't ever want to remove? Red Loctite, it's not completely permanent, but it's pretty much on there. You're making it very hard on yourself.
Yeah. So if you put red Loctite somewhere, you're going to have to heat it to remove it. So you need to be mindful of what's around that area if you're going to put red Loctite on there. Like for example, if you're going to put something plastic in that area, you need to be mindful of that because you're going to have to heat it, and you need to be aware that that's going to melt whenever you heat it. So be careful where you put it. We did a video where to put Loctite on my AR-15, and the basic premise of that video is that there is almost nowhere on your AR-15 you need to be putting Loctite.
All right, there you go. If you learn nothing else from this podcast today, that's probably a good takeaway.
Yes, and if you learn nothing else from this podcast today, your castle nut on your receiver extension assembly by your buffer tube, that never needs Loctite. There's no reason to do that. There's more of those ruined out there in the world right now than anything else because of Loctite. So there's that.
Good. I'm glad. Last week I built one. I didn't use any Loctite anywhere. And probably if I said that on YouTube, most times people go, "You're an idiot." Well, Caleb's an expert, and he just said that I did it just fine.
You did great.
That's awesome. I love it. Now, I can't believe somebody said I did great on doing a build. This is the first ever. You guys hang tight. We're going to be right back. There's a big new handgun announcement from Springfield Armory, probably one that people are more excited about than they have been in a while. This is the SA-35. And basically, this is their version of the Browning High Power. This is John Browning's crowning achievement, many would argue, and he had a big hand in designing it. This is the modern take on the Browning P35, but they've actually done some things to modernize that high power type gun. 15 round capacity, so they've increased the capacity. They've also beveled the magwell. They also changed the beaver tail and the hammer to help with that, but it's a great shooting gun. It's kind of a piece of history, and it's at an affordable price when you compare it to what else is out there. So check out the Springfield Armory SA-35 at springfield-armory.com. if you carry, you're going to end up with lots of different holsters and ways to carry. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because we need options. We dress differently, different types of weather, different times of year, that type of thing. So check out crossbreedholsters.com. They have holsters for all types of carry and firearm configurations. One thing they do really well is they work with the gun manufacturers to make sure that they have holsters ready when a new gun comes out. They also will have all those different configurations, whether it's has a light or a laser or it's optics ready, left-handed, right-handed, whatever you want to do. And then, of course, the different colors and finishes, depending on what you want to carry inside the waistband, outside the waistband, belly bands, and then also gun belts. And that, don't forget the gun belt. That's a really important one. Most are made in the USA and offer a lifetime warranty. You can find out more at crossbreedholsters.com. So Caleb, Brownells has approximately, 1.1 trillion SKUs. When someone is, let's do it this way. You have an AR, it's built, you bought it at the store, which probably the majority of people come through ARs that way. What are some of the first things that you would do to customize maybe some easy first couple projects for somebody?
The easy stuff, the furniture, stock, grip, maybe the hand guard, depending on, which one you currently have on there. If you're using a drop-in hand guard, those are super easy to change. The Magpul furniture is a easy go-to, a good way to personalize it, and a good upgrade in ergonomics. So that's the go-to. That's what I would recommend first. Okay.
All right. And the P80s, I'm bouncing around here, the Glock, sure. Glock clone P80, Polymer 80, those are pretty quick to put together. I mean, depending on what you do, I mean, it's like you have all the parts and you kind of do it. I mean, what do you think? How long is it going to take somebody who doesn't know what they're doing?
Yeah, if it's somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, I probably could have put one together here in the time we've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But they're pretty quick. The instructions are very straightforward. There's really only one way that it can all go together, so they're kind of hard to mess up.
So don't take out your ball peen hammer and just start wanging away to make it fit. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit.
If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So they're hard to mess up. You got to
rule of thumb for most things.
For almost everything, you got to want to mess it up. So they're easy to do.
So talk about this new video series for building your AR. Why'd you guys do it, and what are all the details on it?
There's series out there already, but they just leave. They're almost awesome. They're almost great, and they all have a lot of good information, but they just leave a little bit left out. We felt like, so we kind of got together and we said, we know it's overdue. We know, it's a little late to the punch, but let's just do it. Let's put it out there. Let's hammer it out. So obviously we couldn't do it on the main social media platforms or main media platforms because we're building a gun start to finish with every detail.
And we should talk about that because people listening to this may not realize, I mean, they probably know, well, YouTube's not super friendly to the gun world, but that is specifically called out in a lot of the social platform policies.
We have to host it on our website because we can't host it anywhere else because we're building a gun start to finish, piece by piece, part by part. And, you can't do that.
Even though it's completely legal.
It's
completely common.
It's completely legal, completely common. But I mean, it is what it is.
They don't like it.
They don't like it.
So, okay. So you guys put together, and this is a very extensive series start to finish. I mean, I don't know. You must have spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah, I stood behind the camera, I think, for the first time and hit the record button. I want to say 6 months ago.
Wow. Yeah.
We've been putting some work in, put a lot of hours in on it, and I think it came out really good. But the video itself, start to finish, I think is, if I may be a little bit off on this, but I think it's just over 3 hours.
Okay. Okay.
But you can build an AR-15 in much less time than that. But it's so detailed. It doesn't just show, it's not just me sitting there showing you how to put an AR-15 together. It's me sitting there showing you how to select your parts, why you would select parts a certain way, how to select your tools, why you would use certain tools over other tools, and tips and tricks for installing different parts, why you would install certain parts before other parts, why parts go in certain way, how the parts actually function, how the AR-15 functions. Like, you don't just put the gun together, you understand how the gun works by the time you're done building it. Then once you got the gun together, we go to the range. You come to the range with me in the video. We sit down at the bench. I show you how to load it, shoot it. Then I go through a series of malfunctions. I make the gun basically malfunction. Then I go through all the common malfunctions and I show you how to troubleshoot and fix them. So if your gun's messing up, I show you how to fix it.
And you can tell certain things of, like, if it's not ejecting, maybe you're not getting enough gas, the gas tube's not installed correctly, some of those things.
Yep, we go through all of that. So it's that's why it's a little over a 3-hour video. So
that's awesome. Well, I mean, for one, there are a lot of us, I'm raising my hand, are not really the handy, I'm just going to go build a gun guy. So I am all about a 3-hour video, because I'm the guy who, gets a table in a box and I read all the instructions because I'm like, I'm going to screw this up somehow. I'm going to miss a step. And there's a lot of us out there, I think. But the other part is what you said is a great point, is building your own gun. Now you completely understand all the parts, what they do, and how the gun operates, which in turn, if there's a problem with the gun, you start being able to self-diagnose what's going on with a lot of guns.
That's what I wanted so badly. And so whenever we started it, and they basically said, hey, go look at everyone else's, go look at the competitors and see what they're doing. I said, okay, awesome. Everyone has great build videos. But if I don't know anything and I go and watch their build videos, I know how to build a gun, but I don't understand the gun. I want them to watch our build video and I want them to understand the gun.
Yeah.
So we can't possibly cover every manufacturer's part because there's so many wide variety of parts out there. But if they understand the gun and they get a part that we didn't cover, they know the gun well enough to figure that part out. So then it doesn't matter if we didn't cover that part. It's just a way better process of going about showing how to build a gun. Yeah.
And there are a lot of different ways to enjoy guns. And this is another way. If you have only known and you love guns because you grew up hunting, well, you go, wait, I can build a gun like from scratch? Yeah. And that's kind of why we're spending a lot of time talking about the AR-15, is because it's pretty friendly to build the gun. We talk about mil spec and parts being, for the most part, interchangeable. That's why it's so easy and fun to do, and it's a good place to start, I think. But there are those who like to shoot the guns, but there are these people who are like to tinker and customize. And I mean, Caleb, for you, I'm sure that you're that guy of like, this is one of the reasons I enjoy guns, is breaking it down. How does it work? The mechanics of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot out there. I mean, I think if you have not tried doing a gun build, I have been, because I'm just relatively new getting into it, pleasantly surprised at how it's really possible. It's really not that hard. Somebody like Caleb, you probably can build an AR, almost eyes closed in 10 or 15 minutes. I'm guessing. Me, more like an hour with help, but it's totally doable thing. No lathe required.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a kid, I was always that kid taking apart the toaster, but this definitely is for everybody. And this build series, I'd like to add as well, it's not just for the new builder. If you're an experienced builder, you're definitely still going to get something out of it, because I can guarantee you that there's a tip or trick in there that's going to make your life a little bit easier, because you'll probably see something that'll increase your your quality of life for your next build that you'll be, oh man, that's a little bit faster way to do it. I should try that. There'll be something there for you.
So video series is out now. How do they find it?
It's out now. Brownells.com/how to build.
How to build. And you guys have some cool tech associated with this too. There's special things within the video. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so there's a new, like, we built a whole new interactive web player to go with it. So the intro video basically explains all how it works. So basically in the video process, so as the videos play in, different things will pop up and whatnot. For example, in the video, let's just say I'm talking about a particular product. A link to that product will pop up. It's in a way that's not intrusive at all. But if you click it, the video will keep playing, depending on how your screen's set up, it'll pause the video. It'll bring you straight to the product page. You know, if it's a tool I'm talking about, let's say I'm like, hey, use this wrench here. You click that, boom, it'll take you right to the product. For example, when I was talking about Loctite, where to put Loctite on your AR-15. I think I mentioned that somewhere in the build process. I say, make sure to check out the video on where to put Loctite on your AR-15. That link pops up in the web player. You click that, it pauses the build video and takes you to that video. So there's a lot of complementary stuff to it. So if you add all that stuff to it as well, it's, you know, you take a 3-hour video, now it's, you know, who knows how long with all the extra stuff to it. So
deep down the rabbit hole, but at the end of the rabbit hole, you're somewhat of a very knowledgeable guy on building an AR.
So knowledgeable. There's just so much information packed into it in a very intuitive way. It's crazy.
Very cool. Well, Caleb, thanks for being on with us today. This has been fun.
I appreciate you having me. It's been great. Always a pleasure.
All right, you guys, you know what to do. Go to Brownells, check it out. You're probably going to start buying parts and building an AR. And then all of a sudden you're like building another one and another one. It's a fun hobby. Just, you know, find a place to put all these guns. All right. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.